And the best critical, appreciative books on Ramakrishna Vivekananda you get in these two volumes, Life of Ramakrishna, Life of Vivekananda. That is the later development. But later on, one more book has come from Isherwood, the English writer in America. He has also written Ramakrishna, a great phenomenon. So Western writers are writing. Now many books are coming now. We are now concerned that this Vedanta, this Ramakrishna's message, is meant for the whole world, not for India only. But India must be strong and steady to be able to deliver that message. How to reshape that India? That is the work Swamiji did on his return from his 4 years' work in the West, landing at Colombo in January 1897. That subject we shall take up tomorrow. It is a fascinating subject, inspiring subject. How many people in India are missing reading this literature? Something great will come to them. All that is petty and small will change. A bigger man will come out of the smaller man. Today we have so many petty, small men and women. I call it, we are in a big country, but small people. Small people in a big country, full of pettiness, full of violence. All these things are there. Those things will change when they get education in Vivekananda literature. His words are great music. Let me now alone quote Ramarola's remark about Vivekananda literature. Vivekananda's words are great music. They are like Beethoven's symphonies. They are like the stirring rhythms of the March of Handel choruses. I cannot touch these words of Vivekananda separated in books of 30 years distance without getting a thrill to my body as an electric shock. And what shocks and transports must have been produced on the people who actually heard them. This is what a foreigner writes about Vivekananda literature. Our people need to be shocked out of all these pettiness and complacencies today. Here is the literature for that purpose. So tomorrow we shall deal with that part of Vivekananda's drama, that act in India, how he came, how he was received, what message he gave. All these things will come as a subject tomorrow. So now, thank you all. Namaskar. I spoke of Swami Vivekananda's work in the West and introduced his coming back to India in January 1897. But I wish to mention two more personalities who did immense help to Swamiji and to our country. First is Miss Josephine MacLeod, very high-level lady in England, connected with America also, who did immense help to Swamiji's work in his lifetime and thereafter till she passed away in 1949. The second is Mrs. Ole Bull. She was in Cambridge, next to Boston. Her husband was a great violinist of Norway. She did immense services to fulfill
Swamiji's work in the West as well as in India. In fact, she is the one who paid money to purchase the land at the Belur Mutt headquarters. Our country was asleep at that time. I am glad to announce that an American sannyasini of the Sharda Mutt, Prabhrajika Prabhuddha Prana, has written a beautiful life of Miss Josephine MacLeod, hardly last year. I couldn't stop reading it. In 2 days I finished the whole book. She is now writing a life of Mrs. Ole Bull also, for which she had been to America, she had been to Norway. That book also will come soon. Apart from this, there are 6 volumes written by an American lady of San Francisco, Mrs. Mary Louise Burke. Volumes are Swamiji, Swami Vivekananda in America, New Discoveries. From that book you will know the impact of Swamiji on varieties of minds, common people, uncommon people, scientists, thinkers, all that you will get in that. That book is a book of a research, going from place to place, house to house, discovering new materials about Swamiji in some private house, or an advertisement, a walking stick, or anything like that. She did a lot of research and produced this book. She comes to India almost every year. Now, before I refer to Swamiji's work in India, I want to make a small correction, factual correction. I had said yesterday that from Chicago, finding that the Parliament of Religions will be only in September and Chicago is costly, he was going to Boston. Yesterday I said he went to Boston with Professor Wright. That's not correct. He went to Boston with one lady by name Sanborn, Miss Sanborn. She had no interest in Vedanta. She found Swamiji as a curio. So she invited him to stay with her, to introduce her as a curio, introduce him as a curio to her distinguished guests. One of that guests was Dr. Wright, who gave Swamiji introduction to the Parliament, which came yesterday's lecture. Swamiji writes about it. She wanted to present me as a curio. I also accepted because I could save my dollars. That's what he said. He writes in one letter. Now that is subject of yesterday. Today, Swamiji is returned to India. Earlier we studied his wanderings all over India, living with peasants, princes, high class, low class, Hindu, Muslim, all, trying to know India intimately. He could see the pulse, very weak pulse. The whole nation is down, asleep as it were, and the upper levels perfectly heartless, absolutely no heart. That kind of thing he saw, how humanity has been reduced to a low level of life by the heartlessness of the holders of power in our society. Now coming back to India, people had been excited in India through the newspaper reports here about his success in America. They were all expecting. Every town he passed through, crowds used to come, welcome, speech, and then the next station like that. So he finished Colombo first, a very big reception, and the first public lecture in the East you will find that Colombo lecture titled, then Anuradhapura, Jaffna, crossed over Pamban and Rameshwaram, then Ramnad. Ramnad, the Raja was there. The first important lecture you get in Ramnad in reply to the welcome. All were expecting a tremendous message, young and old, including the prince. The first opening para of that lecture is highly prophetic. Remember, we were under the British subjection. We were perfectly happy with that subjection if you could get 30 rupees clerkship. That was our condition at that time. But Swamiji saw that this is only temporary. Great things are going to happen. That is expressed in the opening para. The longest night seems to be passing away. The sorest trouble seems to be coming to an end at last. The seeming corpse appears to be awaking India, this motherland of ours, from her deep, long sleep. None can resist her anymore. Never is she going to sleep anymore. No outward powers can hold her back anymore. For the infinite giant, he is rising to her feet. What a wonderful vision. A giant of India, sleeping, people coming, tying us hand and feet at that time. And now, the period of awakening. Swamiji is a great awakener of souls. The whole India, he awakened. From now onwards, up to the end of the series of lectures, you will find this note, India awake. And when it is awake, tremendous energy will come, power will come, and we shall channel all these energies and powers only for the good of humanity, never to harm anybody. That he repeated again and again. So from Ramnad, passed over to other towns in Tamil Nadu like Paramakudi, Kumbakonam, Madurai, finally came to Madras. Madras has the distinction of producing one young man at that time, Alasinga Perumal, who saw Swamiji, he appreciated Swamiji's ideas, he became his disciple, and he became the conduit through which Swamiji passed his ideas to the people when he was in the West. Alasinga is an extraordinary devoted person. Many of the finest letters of Swamiji are written to him, dealing with our national problems. Now a large number of young people are joined together along with Alasinga, and he too also suggested Swamiji should go to the West. Now he has come, returned back, and he is welcome. And Madras welcome was extraordinary. If you read the Hindu of those days, 1897, you will see 17 arches all over the town with various slogans written there. Welcome, the hero of Chicago, like that, various things written there. And in the midst of all this tremendous intellectual and spiritual ferment, Swamiji gave 5 great lectures in Madras. They are masterpieces, both in language, diction, ideas. The first lecture, title itself is remarkable. With all this enthusiasm of the people, how to channelize this enthusiasm to national development, national welfare, nation making. And so, the first title is My Plan of Campaign. Okay, like a Napoleon planning a campaign. That is the first lecture. my plan of campaign. Then comes Vedanta and its application to Indian life. Third comes the work before us. What are the great problems that we have to face in the nation? Then comes the sages of India, another masterly lecture coming from the Upanishads up to Ramakrishna, a beautiful presentation of the great sages and incarnations who have adorned the horizon of India. And lastly comes that wonderful lecture, the future of India. In these lectures, Swamiji pointed out how narrow our minds had become, how contracted our life has become. Almost to die. Too much contraction means death, expansion means life. We were in a contracted mind, as it were. And then this caste exclusiveness, this untouchability, and neglect of women, treated as good-for-nothing people. Our women have suffered for these 2000 years from all the books written to govern social life. In all of them, you will find only the rights of men and the duties of women. They have no rights, only duties. Rights all belong to men only. Up to date, almost all the books contain only this kind of thing, and they have no education. Even a Brahmana's wife cannot utter the word Om. They were deprived of all facilities. This kind of evil descended upon the nation. Humanity's humanness was completely eradicated. Swamiji pointed out to all this, this narrow mind must go. Broad issues are there. The whole world is there. You have to work together with the rest of the world. You have to change all this. There he spoke of the need to work hard. Work hard. There is too much of talk in India. Talk, talk, talk. Talk less, work more, and feel more. Feel from the heart, then power will come. All these wonderful ideas you get in all these lectures. In one place, we have caste aristocracy, money aristocracy, and pedigree aristocracy. All these in India. And they have been, working heavily to put people down these centuries together. A most revolutionary sentence occurs in that lecture, Future of India. The duty of every aristocracy is to dig its own grave. The sooner it does so, the better. The more it will delay, the more it will fester, and the worse death it will die. What a language! 1897. Marxism and other things nobody had heard in India at that time. But here is a person who is speaking about awakening of humanity. Those common people, millions of them, living like animals, we have to raise them. The whole thing has to be changed. He uses the word revolution. A revolutionary change is needed in India, in our society. Our teachings are great. Our Upanishads and Gita speak highly of the divinity of the human being, but we treat the human being worse than animals. This contradiction must go. In one letter he had written from America to India, no religion on earth preaches the dignity of humanity in such a lofty strain as Hinduism, and no religion on earth treads upon the necks of the poor and the low in such a fashion as Hinduism. Both we are doing. Man is the Atman, the immortal self. That is the true nature of man. But we just treat him worse than cattle, worse than animal. Now all these things you will find in this wonderful literature. And as for religion, simply it became just a few rituals and ceremonies without any heart in it, without any spiritual benefit out of it, without developing character out of it. That kind of religion also lost all relevance in the modern period. And the priests were trying to put more and more bonds on the hands of the people, against which Swamiji wrote from Japan on the way to America. Kick out the priests who are against progress. They will never mend. What we want is an infinite heart, compassion for all. That humanity, humanism must come to us in a big way. And then comes a famous passage in that lecture on future of India. It is full of energy. This particular subject says here, for the next, so give up being a slave. Don't be slavish, he says. Give up being a slave. For the next 50 years, this alone shall be our keynote, this our great Mother India. Let all other vain gods disappear for the time from our minds. This is the only God that is awake. Our own race. Everywhere is hands, everywhere is feet, everywhere is ears. He covers everything. That is the famous Sarvatah Panipadam Tat Sarvatoksha Shiromukam. In the Gita you find God as a Virat Sarupa, manifested of the universe. That is the Vedantic teaching. That here you can see God present, living God. We neglect them. We have destroyed God in this form. So he says, this is the Virat that we have to worship. All other gods are sleeping. What vain gods shall we go after and yet cannot worship? The God that we see all around us, the Virat Sarupa. We cannot worship this Virat. We go to a temple, weep before the God there, come here and cheat a human being here. We never had happy relations between human beings. Our God is only in the temple and nowhere else. Swamiji is referring to that. Here is the Virat Swarupa. We neglected God there. This is based on the beautiful words from the Srimad Bhagavatam. That reference is coming here. It says, when we have worshipped this, we shall be able to worship all other gods. Before we can crawl half a mile, we want to cross the ocean like Hanuman. It cannot be. Everyone going to be a yogi, everyone going to meditate, it cannot be. The whole day mixing with the world, with karma kanda, ritualistic section, and the evening sitting down and blowing through your nose, doing some pranayama. This is all of religion. The entire human aspect is forgotten, is neglected. This is blowing through your nose, as the language is used here. Is it so easy? Should rishis come flying through the air because you have blown 3 times through the nose? Is it a joke? It is all nonsense with the language. Man with authority who speaks, it is all nonsense. What we need is chitta shuddhi, purity of the mind, purity of heart. There. And how does it come? The first of all worship is the worship of the Virat. The next man in front of you, the neighbor, the other, they are the people who have to honor and worship, cooperate and work together. That is the first thing. All those who are around us, worship it. Not merely serve, but worship it in the language. Then comes, worship is the exact equivalent of the Sanskrit word, and no other English word will do. This comes from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Tritiya Skandham, where Kapila gives spiritual advice to his mother, Devahuti, Kapila was an incarnation of the divine. In that advice comes, Mother, I am not pleased with people spending enormous money to worship me in some images while insulting me in all the human beings around. I am in all of them. I don't like that kind of worship. But worship me in all beings. Worship is the word. What is that word? Arhayet, Archayet, Archana, Arhana is called worship. When service is done with reverence, it becomes worship. What a beautiful idea. But how to worship God in man? You can't go to the street and say, stop, I want to worship you, do an arati. You can't do that. But the Lord says, Dhanamanabhyam, to removal of felt needs and respecting Him while serving Him. Don't look down upon Him. Dhanamanabhyam. And Maitriya, through friendship. Abhinnena Chakshusha, attitude of non-separateness. We are all one. We are all one. With this attitude, worship me in all beings. The word Swamiji said, therefore, is worship. Arhayet, Archayet, not merely Sevayet, Seva, only ordinary service. So, worship is the exact equivalent of the Sanskrit word, and no other English word will do. These are all our gods, men and women, our own countrymen, is it? And animals also, all of them. He says, these are to be worshipped, all these around us. Then these we have to worship instead of being jealous of each other and fighting each other. We are being constantly jealous of each other. Jealousy is the characteristic of a slave. Slaves alone are jealous. Why that man gets better than me? That only slavish minds develop jealousy. So Swamiji has written, jealousy and slavery are the obverse and reverse of the same coin. So give up being a slave. He started this passage. And so here he says, these are the countrymen whom we have to worship, the first gods whom we have to worship instead of being jealous of each other and fighting each other. We are the most litigious people in the whole world. I have traveled around the world. I have never seen so much of litigation as we see in this country. For everything litigation. Because we have no faith in man. Our faith is in that idol in the temple, nowhere else. The whole thing has to change. Swamiji's reference is coming to that particular subject. It is the most terrible karma for which we are suffering, and yet it does not open our eyes. It is time to open our eyes. Now this passage is very famous. This idea of seeing God in every human being, respect and worship and service. The stress is on service with reverence. So that becomes worship, not throwing a paisa like a feudal type of society charity. Go to a temple, after worshipping, you see a poor man there, throw a paisa towards him and you go away. You didn't care for him at all, no respect for him. That is not what we need. We must respect even the poorest of the poor. The divine is there. Today we are in democracy. Everybody has a value, unique value. So Swamiji spoke at that time. This wonderful democracy that is to come later, where we can have that relationship between one human being and the other in a spirit of equality, mutual respect and cooperation. Service is the key word. In one passage he has said, renunciation and service are the twin ideals of India. Intensify her in those channels, the rest will take care of itself. Tyaga, seva. Without a little tyaga, you can't do any seva. If you want to show a man which is that house, you have to go out to the way to show that house. That is sacrifice you have to do. Without a little tyaga, real seva cannot be done. So this tyaga of this little I so that the larger I may manifest. I am one with you. That spiritual development must come the people concerned. Now these are the various lectures in Madras, very powerful language. Even today when you read, they look so fresh. Jawaharlal Nehru said when he spoke about these lectures, they look so fresh even today. After so many years, that is right. It comes from the mouth of a great sage, of a rishi. And therefore, Swamiji created a tremendous impression in Madras, and later on, through these lectures coming out in book form, inspired many people to join the fight for freedom. Many of the freedom fighters were inspired by Swami Vivekananda. They themselves have said it, and Mahatma Gandhi has said in a speech at Belur Math when he came there, I have not come to preach Satyagraha here. I have come to the place where the great Vivekananda lived. I want to take something of that inspiration, and I want all of you also to take some inspiration from here. I have studied his books carefully. After studying them, my love for India has become thousandfold, is the language. If all of us can develop 1% love for the nation, we can solve our problem. There is no love for the nation at all. Love only for oneself, especially after independence. And therefore, this wonderful idea, literature of strength, literature of man-making and nation-building, as he calls it, this is what you find. And his words against untouchability is tremendous. He spoke of Kerala at that time, where not only untouchability was there, unseeability also was there. Some sections cannot be seen even. If you see them, you must take a bath. That's called unseeability. Swamiji saw this madness and said, the whole Kerala is a madhouse, all lunatics. This language he has used. And today, Kerala is completely free from all types of untouchability. People have risen to the highest level through education, exactly the way Swamiji wanted. You will find it happening there. So, untouchability, caste exclusiveness, pride, I am a Brahmin, I am this and that. Sri Ramakrishna did many sadhanas. One sadhana is unique. Nobody else has done it. Coming from a Kulin Brahmin family, he used to go to the latrine of a paraya next to Dakshineshwar temple at midnight and clean it, praying, Mother, remove the pride in me that I am a Brahmana, I am a superior caste. Make me the servant of all. Make me the servant of all. That one sadhana has a tremendous significance for our country today. We are so full of these petty ideas of status, superiority, that democracy can never come to us. Political democracy must become social democracy. That cannot come without this kind of change of attitude. So from Madras he goes to Calcutta, his own native place. Big reception was there, 2-3 lectures were delivered there. Then Almora, then goes to Lahore. In Lahore, big reception. Arya Samaj and many other institutions combined together gave a tremendous reception. Among the 3 lectures, one lecture is famous, about 2 hours lecture on Vedanta. Big gathering was there. Swami Ramatirtha was a professor at that time. He helped to organize that lecture. In that lecture, you find another inspiring utterance coming to us. He says, therefore, young men of Lahore, raise once more that mighty banner of Advaita, non-duality, non-separateness, that we are all one. For on no other ground can you have that wonderful love, until you see that the same Lord is present everywhere. Samam Pashyan hi sarvatra samavasthitam Ishwaram. This is there in the Gita. The same Ishvara present everywhere. Realize that truth, says Krishna in the Gita. Unfurl that banner of love. Arise, awake, and stop not till the goal is reached. Arise, arise once more, for nothing can be done without renunciation. If you want to help others, your little self must go. In the words of the Christians, you cannot serve God and Mammon at the same time. Have vairagya. Your ancestors gave up the world for doing great things. At the present time, there are men who give up the world to help their own salvation. Throw away everything, even your own salvation, and go and help others. You are always talking bold words, but here is practical Vedanta before you. Give up this little life of yours. What matters it if you die of starvation? You and I, and thousands like us, so long as this nation lives, the nation is sinking. The curse of unnumbered millions is on our heads. Those to whom we have been giving ditch water to drink, when they have been dying of thirst, while the perennial river of water was flowing past. See that unnumbered millions. The unnumbered millions whom we have allowed to starve in the sight of plenty. The unnumbered millions to whom we have talked of Advaita and who we have hated with all our strength. The unnumbered millions for whom we have invented the doctrine of Lokachara. This untouchability is a Lokachara, we must observe it. That's how we justify it, Lokachara. To whom we have talked theoretically that we are all the same and are all one with the same Lord, without even an ounce of practice. Yet, my friends, it must be only in the mind, never in practice. If you ask Pandits, if you ask priests, this is the language they will tell you. Keep Advaita in your mind. Don't practice it. You make distinctions. That must remain. Swamiji is referring to that. Wipe off this blot. That's the language. Wipe off this blot. Arise and awake. What matters it if this little life goes? Everyone has to die. The saint or the sinner, the rich or the poor. Body never remains for anyone. Arise and awake and be perfectly sincere. Our insincerity in India is awful, even today, 1992, Swamiji's time also. Insincerity, absolutely awful it is. What we want is character, that steadiness and character that make a man cling on to a thing like grim death. Tremendous power of conviction. Then we can change this world. A few people with the power of conviction, that's what we need. In these lectures, Swamiji gave these great ideas. He had particularly two sections of our people in view to awaken them, raise them to the highest. One is women, the other is the common people. Both have been suppressed for ages. Women's education, common people's education. Through education alone, you can raise a nation. Europe became modern when it gave education to its people. That is the modern European history. We have yet to become that modern. A few top people educated doesn't make the nation modern. The whole nation must become educated. Then India will be entering fully the modern age. Women's education is absolutely essential. Perfect equality between man and woman. That is the Vedic teaching. That must come to India. He said, a bird cannot fly on one wing. It needs two wings. A society cannot progress and only men are educated and women are not. Both must be educated. These are the examples he gave at that time. And so he wanted to start a mutt for women, a nunnery for women. But conditions were not favorable at that time. Educated women were not many. Sister Nivedita, Sister Christine, and a few others, all of them conducted a girls' school in Calcutta at that time, and the Holy Mother was the inspiration for all of them. Swamiji said, based upon the Holy Mother, we shall have a women's mutt. That desire of Swamiji became realized in 1953 during the centenary of the Holy Mother. And 1959, an independent Sharda Mutt was started in Calcutta to fulfill Swamiji's dream that these nuns will carry this great message of Vedanta to various countries and various parts of India. And it is actually doing today. They are highly developed. Many branches are there, one in foreign countries, in Australia, that is Sydney. An Australian girl has joined also as a brahmacharini. So this is one part of the story. Then he started the mutt, Belur Mutt. He continues the great work of Sri Ramakrishna, for which he wanted the original sannyasins to join together, took up a house for 10 rupee rent because it was a haunted house. You could get it cheap. So there the Ramakrishna Mutt started in Calcutta, Baranagore, opposite to Belur Mutt. From that, he shifted to Belur Mutt later on, before Swamiji passed away. Ramakrishna Mutt, Ramakrishna Mission, two organizations to serve the people without respect of caste, creed, nationality or anything, looking upon them as sparks of the divine. That is the purpose. Every type of service, physical, mental, spiritual, service during calamities. Just then, plague broke out in Calcutta. There was a panic in the city. Our workers went under the leadership of Sister Nivedita and helped immensely in pacifying the people and cleaning up various bastis of Calcutta. At the beginning. Then famine relief, various other types of relief, which you know already, that is going on as a tradition. So Swamiji wanted this kind of service to be the central principle of religion, the spirit of service. Your neighbor is in front of you, you neglect him, and where are you going? To search for God. God is in your heart, God is the heart of the other person also. So finding here through meditation and finding there through seva, let these two go together. This is the Gita teaching. But Krishna said, Mam anusmara yudhyacha. Meditate upon me inside. Carry on the battle of life outside. This is the Gita teaching. Swamiji said, the best book on practical Vedanta is the Bhagavad Gita. But we never lived the Bhagavad Gita teaching. We only honored it, respected it, never practiced it. The time has come to make Gita practical in every aspect of human life, so that this country will rise to the highest level. So, a monastic order for men, a monastic order for women. And Swamiji especially said that women's monastic order will be independent of the men's monastic order. Men will not dominate over women. They will look after themselves. I don't want to commit the mistake of Buddhists and the Christians, where women were under the control of men monastics. So today they are perfectly independent, developing in their own way. So this is Swamiji's life work. Already 1897 he landed in India. Only 5 years life was left. 1902 he passed away. But within that time he went to the West a second visit, visited also Mayavati, that ashrama in the Himalayas, conducted by the Saviors, Mr. and Mrs. Savior, and Swamiji's whom he had sent there. Now the last days have come. Swamiji's last day is wonderful. He took a long walk, sat 3 hours in meditation in the temple, took a class for the brahmacharis and sadhus there, and by evening he went to his room, just sat in meditation. After some time, he just lay down. A young disciple was nearby. After a few minutes, Swamiji is gone. Swami Vivekananda passed away. It is a tremendous event. Newspapers and all are full of this story. Sister Nivedita came from Calcutta, sat at the feet, weeping. This is the story of Vivekananda. He said, I may die, but I will continue to work till humanity will realize that it is one with God. I shall continue to work through various agencies. Vivekananda will continue to work. That is the spirit of Swami Vivekananda. Arise, awake, and stop not till the goal is reached. One special thing he has told us. We have conducted our society based upon our smritis. Our smritis are full of discrimination against untouchables, against women, all such. Smritis cannot survive today. They cannot guide our life. Our constitution today denies many of the prescriptions of the smritis. So we should build India on our Shruti. Shruti is the Upanishad, the Vedanta. That is full of the spirit of freedom, equality and dignity of the human personality, equality of men and women. That is what Shruti means, all the Upanishads. He wanted our people to study the Upanishads, study the Gita, the best commentary on the Upanishad, and create a new India, Indian society based upon the Vedanta, this Advaita Vedanta. We are all essentially one. We are one with the whole world outside, not only within the nation, but also internationally as well. That is the charge he has given to us, to develop each one, inspiring oneself with his own life and Ramakrishna's life and Holy Mother's life. They have all got one common characteristic, a big mother heart, full of love and compassion. Mother heart is a beautiful idea. A woman has a heart, generally compassionate, loving. She can also deliver a baby, but a man cannot deliver a baby. But man also has a mother heart. Mother heart is common to men and women. We suffered in India because this mother heart became dried up. Even our women's heart became dried up. Women have suffered more from women than from men. Remember that. Today we need to open up that mother heart of compassion, of love, the humanistic impulse, through which will come the spirit of service, elevating all humanity. This is needed all over the world, not only here. So this Advaita is preaching this type of divine humanism in the West, and it preaches that here along with various service activities as well. This is Swami Vivekananda. At the age of 39, he passed away. At the age of 29, he went to America. Only 10 years, 9 to 10 years of life, he shook up our country and the Western world as well. What a tremendous achievement for any human being. There is a wonderful shloka in the Mahabharata where the mother, Queen Mother, tells her princely son, who became depressed due to defeat in a battle. After so many persuasions, he did not become alert, And the Queen Mother said, Vidula, her name is Vidula. Vidula said, Muhurtam jveridam shreyo nato dhumaitam chiram. It is better to flame forth for one instant than smoke away for ages. What a beautiful idea. Smoking for ages, what fun is there? Just flame forth and disappear. Muhurtam jveridam shreyo nato dhumaitam chiram. That is Vivekananda. That is Shankaracharya. Short life, intense, and it created a new awareness among the people in both in the East and West. Swamiji's message is spreading fast all over the world by itself, through books, through various correspondences. People come in touch, and it goes on because it is so modern, it is so scientific. The Upanishads are close to science. Science is close to the Upanishad. In fact, Ramarola would say, Vivekananda's Vedanta accepts science. Science does not accept Vedanta because they have not understood what is Vedanta. So, a bigger circle can include a smaller circle. Vedanta is a bigger circle. Everything else is a smaller circle. It can be included in Advaita Vedanta. When you study the Upanishads properly, you will get this great understanding. Hereafter, Upanishads and the Gita will be our inspiration for building up a free, egalitarian society where human beings develop their own infinite possibilities. That is the great work for which Swamiji came, or Sri Ramakrishna brought him for this great work. The Holy Mother belongs also to the same category, infinite mother heart. No distinction between Hindu, Muslim, Christian, so far as Holy Mother is concerned. He loved all of them, served all of them. Now that is the wonderful event for the modern period. Such a history has never taken place before. This is the first time a spiritual teacher deals with the economic and social problems of humanity. Formerly they only used to deal with religion, how to meditate, how to do puja, how to go to temple. Here is a teacher who deals with economics and politics and society, all that is needed for human development through a complete philosophy of life. That is what Vivekananda got from Sri Ramakrishna, a complete philosophy of life, to see God with eyes open and with eyes closed. God is here as well as there. Everywhere He is there. This is full philosophy. That is the basis of the Bhagavad Gita, and Bhagavad Gita is the essence of all the Upanishads according to Shankaracharya. Samasta Vedartha Sara Sangraha Bhutam, Bhagavad Gita. Here is a wonderful phenomenon that has taken place in our time. We are all living in that time. We have not felt the impulse of that tremendous power coming from Swamiji. Those who feel it, they will become great workers. They will become original, creative men and women. We have that inspiration in this country. No other country has a leadership of this type as we have in Ramakrishna and Vivekananda. We have to use that leadership, then our work will be done. A new India will arise, and the future India is going to be brighter than all the past Indias according to Swami Vivekananda. This is the subject which we study at this time when we are celebrating the centenary of Swamiji's wanderings all over India, and next year appearing at the Parliament of Religions also. As I said yesterday, Swamiji is what you call Parivrajaka life is being repeated by Kanyakumari Kendra. They have reached from Calcutta through various places up to Gujarat now. They will reach in Bombay on 20th September. 20th to 27th they will be in Bombay, take part in all their activities, awaken the people. National awakening must come through that. This is
they are requesting me to announce to you the Kanyakumari people. Kanyakumari Kendra contains Swamiji's statue on that rock on which he meditated on this very subject, and they are doing wonderful work. They have got a group of dedicated workers, Jeevan Bratis, and they work in the field of education, integrated rural development, etc., in many parts of India. Yes, beginning, graduates come and join them, men and women, all. That is Kanyakumari Kendra. This is Ramakrishna Mata Mission, the other is Sharda Mata Mission. Three important institutions working out Swami Vivekananda's ideas in the best manner possible. My thanks to all of you. I take leave tomorrow to Bangalore, Mysore, Calcutta. Namaskar.